welcome to the Ladylike podcast. I'm Julie Terry, and this is my co-host, Delaney Cruz. Today we're continuing our Parenting Teens podcast series.
Yes.
So we're probably going to do about 5 episodes on parenting teenagers. So if you don't have teenagers, don't fret. We're going to change to another subject eventually. But we're talking today about a very relevant topic for every parent these days, and that is smartphones.
Yes.
So, Delaney, can you read the question
Yeah.
that we're going to be kind of starting off from?
Yeah, of course. Our question today is, my teen is glued to their phone and gaming system constantly. Often they are trying to, sorry.
That's okay.
My teen is glued to their phone gaming system constantly, often when they are supposed to be doing other things. How can I help them get back to living and building their real life?
So, if you know any teenagers, you can see that that's a problem.
Yes.
I mean, even just sitting in a waiting room or whatever, and not just for teenagers, sadly. I think it's just kind of a cultural issue right now. But we really do see the problem. And a 2023 Gallup poll found that teens spend an average of 4.8 hours a day just on social media.
That's crazy.
YouTube and TikTok are their favorites. Did that surprise you that it was YouTube and TikTok instead of Instagram and Snapchat?
So, TikTok doesn't surprise me. YouTube, maybe a little, since we're shifting more towards short form content, and that one's heavily long form.
Right.
So it does shock me. I do see Snapchat not being as prevalent anymore, but
Okay.
I would have thought TikTok and Instagram would have been the top two.
Yeah. Well, at least in 2023, that was the thing. And what's a little bit more dangerous about those platforms is that typically they're not dealing with people that they know.
Right.
So Instagram, at least you might know who they're talking to, or you can have a private account. With TikTok or YouTube, they're probably being influenced by people that you don't know at all.
Right. So we also have an excerpt from an article, Focus on the Family. Dana Gresh writes, half of American teens believe they are addicted to their smartphones. She adds that the social media app usage creates teens that are now less able to regulate emotions, less able to manipulate impulses, less able to make good decisions, and lower in self-esteem.
Wow. They also are more susceptible to anxiety and depression. So the very thing that social media is trying to remedy, which is loneliness, often causes
that
loneliness. Yes.
Yeah.
And so now there's AI, there's
Streaming apps,
computers for school. So now kids are actually spending 9 hours a day.
9 hours. That actually isn't that shocking and surprising to me. I feel like it would be a lot more.
Wow.
But I did look at my screen time before we started this, and I spend an average of 6 hours on my phone.
Wow.
So I guess I'm not much better than the teens nowadays.
Well, and you asked me how many I spent, and I really didn't go look. But
You don't want to know.
I may not be far behind you. But we talked about a lot of our screen time is really audio.
Yes.
It might be listening while we're doing other things, like working when I'm working outside or doing exercise, I listen to music
or a podcast. I do the same. If I go to the gym in the afternoon, I'll turn on a podcast. If I'm getting ready in the morning, I'll turn something on just to listen to.
Right. So that is it's almost like our stereo we're bringing with
us.
Instead of the scrolling, which can really get out of control, for teenagers more easily, it seems like, than adults. So today on our podcast, Delaney and I are probably not going to solve the teen addiction to our phone problem, but we just wanted to cover it because what we could do is provide some encouragement that parents are not
going through it alone.
You're not going through it alone. And maybe we're going to have a conversation about how we got here.
Yeah.
And even what we're going through as parents of a generation of children experiencing things along with us instead of us being ahead of them.
Right.
And then also, we're going to talk about what kids are not learning while they're on their phones.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll give you some ideas about things that, might spark your child's interest.
Or just help you not feel like you're going through something totally alone. It's a whole new concept to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. We're all experiencing this advancement in technology right now. So.
Yes. And then we're just going to talk about where we go from here.
Yeah.
So why don't we start out with how we got here? So first, we talked about innovators when we were talking about how did we get to this place where computers are in our pocket?
Yeah.
So what do you think, has really led to this crazy cell phone age we're living in?
Yeah, I think there's somebody out there that is way more creative and way smarter than me that said, let's turn this big desktop laptop into something that can go in my pocket. And I think that's what makes technology advancement so cool and so interesting, is that we can get something so big into something so small and portable and so efficient. It feels like it's been very rapid, though, how we've gone from that transition.
Yes.
And we were just talking a little bit like your experiences growing up.
Yes. So I was thinking about how when I was a child and a teenager, I had no computer at home until I think high school, maybe even college. I remember my parents got what seems now to be this giant computer with this big square box screen, and then big speakers, and I didn't even get an email address till college. I didn't get a cell phone till college, so I didn't grow up with any of that. My social media happened after my third child. So I just had no experience with that.
That's so funny. Was your phone like the big, all I can think of is like Saved by the Bell, and Zach pulls out the big like black phone?
No, I think I skipped that one. I didn't even get a phone until after they had gotten a little bit smaller. But I still remember writing my essays in high school with this old typewriter that actually my fingers would fall between the keys. It was kind of, I think I only did that because I thought it was cool. Like, I think I had access to a better typewriter, but I just thought it was a really neat old typewriter. But I even used whiteout. Like, we didn't have the delete button. We had to get in there and paint on over our mistakes and go back and start over again. So my whole growing up did not prepare me for helping my kids make decisions about who they should follow on Instagram.
Right. That's so funny. Yeah, I think for me, I don't ever remember. I'm sure there's a time that we didn't have our little office set up with the computer at it, but I always remember having one there. So if you wanted to look anything up, do anything online, you had to go to that one designated spot in the house. Your parent could monitor it, because I don't know, there probably was a way to delete browsing history back then, but I didn't know.
Right.
So you couldn't be up to anything mischievous, because it was the family computer. Everybody used it. You had to go to one spot. It was like, ours was in the middle of the house, so anybody could walk by at any time and see what you were doing, and I was probably always playing cool math games on it. But yeah, so it's just that advancement from having that desktop, and eventually, I think when I was 12, I got my first laptop. So I could go on my laptop anywhere in the house. And then that eventually turned into a little nano iPod that was like this big, so I could listen to music.
Oh, yes.
And then I got the bigger one that was like an iPhone size, but a lot smaller. And then that turned into an iPhone one day.
Wow. So yeah, I still remember tape decks, sadly. And so definitely we've gotten to a place where technology actually grows faster. The more technology it expands or develops, it even creates speed for it to change even more. You know? So we really can't try, even if we were, Bill Gates or whoever, we're not going to get ahead of technology. So we're going to have to find other ways to deal with the issues that we have. There's also some changing home dynamics, it seems, that have affected how kids relate with their phones now. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. So I think that we like to put a lot of the blame on the kids, like, oh, there's an iPad kid, oh, they're sitting in front of the TV. But I think that parents also have a phone problem that needs to be recognized. I'll go out to dinner and you'll look at any table in the restaurant, and not just are the kids playing on their iPad, or I even started seeing kids with headphones in nowadays. Like, you go to a restaurant, I don't know what's up with these big headphones, but I don't ever see kids walking without headphones in anymore, which I guess is a whole different rabbit hole. But I also see parents on their iPhones scrolling through dinner, not like looking at their kids and engaged with their kids and having conversations, asking about how their days at school went.
Exactly.
So it's also a parent problem, and I think that what you mirror is what your kids will model. So what you model, your kids will mirror. So if you are also on your phone all the time, then your kids will be too. So I think as a parent, if you act intentional with your time and your child's time, then they'll also mirror that with you.
Yeah, that's a very convicting and good point, because so many times parents can justify what we're doing on our phone.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I got
I'm
a
doing
work call. Yeah, I got an email that was important. I got a text or whatever.
The news just came out with something, and I'm reading about what's going on with the country.
Yes, we're going to war, I need to know these things.
Yeah. And
all of that's true, but we have to set the example of saying, but family time is special.
Right.
Like mealtime is sacred.
Yes.
There's got to be a place where our kids can have our undivided attention as well.
Landon and I are definitely working on that, because like I said, my screen time is 6 hours, so I am no saint when it comes to being on my phone. But we're talking about how for dinner, like, let's put our phones down, let's actually talk and see how our days went. And then he also said that for movies, we should put our phones down, because we'll often start watching a movie and we'll be really into it, but then at one point we'll start scrolling. And
isn't that strange?
It is.
I noticed my kids do that. Yes. That it'll be like, yeah, I'm watching a movie with you, but they're not.
They're not. And I'll get so frustrated by it, because Landon at some point will be like, what did he say? It's like the biggest plot point in the movie. What did that guy just say? I'm like, you haven't been watching for the last 5 minutes? He's like, no, can we go back? And I'm like, no, we can't go back. Like, I want to know what happens next.
That's a really good point. And we also, when we're talking about just the changing home dynamics, I also grew up, I was thinking about my childhood friends in my neighborhood. I thought of 8 just like that were of various ages, guys, girls, and we all played outside. We didn't. There wasn't really an issue of if it was unhealthy to be in someone's home, because we just were outside kids.
Right.
We played basketball and we played hide and seek, and we rode bikes and did different things. And so these days, so many families move to different cities, different neighborhoods. They don't know their neighbors.
Yeah.
So they're not as comfortable allowing their kids to be outside. And even just practically, whether it's a safety issue or an overprotective issue, or just there's not enough free space, kids don't play outside like they
houses
did
are closer together now.
Yeah. And so
I had the same childhood growing up. We were outside kids, and it was like sun goes down and you start running home, so you make it in time for dinner. But yeah, we rode our bikes in the neighborhood. I had a friend, we played dolls all the time. We had chalk, and we did hopscotch. We sold lemonade at lemonade stands. We did all the things outside. But I will say, I live in a young family neighborhood, and they're outside. There's a big, good group of kids. They go up in this one big grass patch, and they're always playing kickball or softball, and they're so fun. I always just want to walk up and be like, can I join? And then I'm like, wait, that's a little weird. They're not going to let you join.
Well, I understand how you feel, because I would be secretly wanting to join the kickball game myself. And then there's COVID.
Right.
COVID happened about 5 years ago.
Has it been?
It has been 5 years.
That doesn't even feel right.
And so I was thinking about how teenagers now, so a 14-year-old now was 9 in the midst of COVID when it started, and many kids, they went through things like they had to wear a mask to school. They were afraid to go to the grocery store, or they saw their parents being afraid. Couldn't go to church.
Right.
They couldn't go to school for a season. And many of them had nurses as parents They were constantly afraid that someone in their family was going to get sick, even if they didn't have nurses and doctors in the family. But if they had that, I just thought about how I bet a lot of children were just living in a little bit of dread for a long time. And so school came online. A lot of probably soccer, a lot of that stuff. Some of that really tried to keep going, because it was outside. But a lot of events just got canceled. And I mean, my two oldest were 11th and 12th grader, right when COVID hit. So they missed out on some important, kind of life events, and it was so sad to me. But I think that we just need to remember that the teenagers today are even more just used to being online for everyday life, and even they probably got more comfortable maybe making friends or doing things socially online, and so they may have a harder time just getting to know people face to face, just getting to know new friends, that sort of thing.
I was in I don't remember what year of college, maybe sophomore year of college. I was doing my associate's degree. It was my last semester before I finished my associate's degree, and COVID shut everything down. My classes went online, and I never went back to school after that. So I transferred. I was at FSCJ at the time. It was my last semester there, and I was transferring to UNF afterwards to do my bachelor's, and I never picked back up in-person classes.
Oh, wow.
I never even stepped foot on the campus for any type of class. I think I went to take a test so I could graduate, and that was the only time I ever stepped foot back on that campus. So it's just kind of funny how what was supposed to be temporary, of we're going to be on our phones, became the new normal. And then not only for kids in middle, elementary, high school, became the new normal for college kids too. Like, you become so connected to what's happening online. And I know I was telling you earlier, that was the year TikTok really exploded. So I wrote down some stats on it. So in 2020, the year of COVID, TikTok had the highest number of downloads of any app in a single quarter. So that was 315 million downloads in just a single quarter. And just to give you a framework for that, in 2019, the app had 738 million downloads. By 2020, that turned into 2 billion. And by 2021, a year after COVID, 3 billion.
Wow.
So just going from 700 million to 3 billion in that time frame.
Such a short time.
Such a short time frame.
Yes. Well, and so obviously our kids they're just comfortable online. They're not going to just stop necessarily, and so why don't we kind of switch the conversation to what are some things that our kids, our teenagers, are missing out on during the years of 13 to 18 while they're on their phones, while they're scrolling. Maybe they're learning some pretty cool things. There are some instructive YouTube videos, and I learn a lot of recipes on TikTok. I can say that, you know? But for the most part, they're not looking for instruction.
Right.
And so I was thinking about just some hard skills, just practical things that either I learned or that just for the last, since the beginning of time, when you're transitioning from childhood to adulthood, there's things you need to learn. So things like yard work, simple stuff. Like, I was thinking about my childhood as like, okay, I didn't have the most exciting childhood, but at least twice a month I was my dad's yard work helper.
My dad tried to do that, but we always helped in the yard. I just was not very helpful. I was purposely not helpful.
And so, but a lot of teenage guys especially end up making a really good job, a really good little business out of their yard work skills, and so cooking, crocheting, gardening, car repair, financial literacy, playing an instrument, building things, and even like a love for literature or a love of history because of deep reading. My children got really into classic literature. One got really into classic literature, partially because it was required, but then it just kind of developed into a real hobby, and it seems like now I very rarely meet a teenager who says, I just love British history or whatever, They don't seem to dig very deep into a hobby or an interest.
Yeah.
And so what do you think their adult life is, how is it going to be affected because they really didn't take the time to develop, strong skills, even learning how to play an instrument really well or whatever it is?
I think another hard skill, before I answer that question, that kids weren't able to develop, especially during those times, is just that ability to sit with yourself in quiet and not have to use something to stimulate your brain constantly, because that's what all this short form content does to you. It gives you those instant dopamine hits, and they don't have the ability to sit in a room not looking at anything, just stare at a blank wall and have like those, think through your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts. They don't have time to be creative. Do kids even daydream anymore? I have no idea. You know how many times I would just start daydreaming in class about probably the kid I had a crush on, how he was going to tell me I looked pretty that day. Like, they don't have time to think about these things. They're constantly having to be like,
they're constantly like faced with new information. To process. Yes.
So they have no space to just feel uncomfortable. Sometimes it's okay to be uncomfortable with what you're going through. And so I think sometimes one of those hard skills is just being able to build up, like, you get insecure when you see new things online. So I think it builds your confidence, your security, your thought processing, your ability to make choices on a daily, like, if we're talking about, just to sit with yourself and like talking about cooking recipes, be able to decide like, I'm gonna cook this today. I don't have to see something that I saw online to think this is what I'm gonna cook today. So the ability to make choices for yourself.
Yeah, that's a really important point that I know for myself. I just need downtime after maybe a big event or really just a lot of social time. I just need processing time. And it seems like teenagers don't give themselves that processing time. They don't really know that it could be a healthy thing.
Right.
And that really might be part of the reason why the anxiety and the depression is an issue, because they're not giving themselves time to emotionally recover.
That makes sense.
So also the soft skill side of things is really being affected by all of us being on our phones in our culture. And I do think it's really helpful sometimes if you are a traveler, and if your kids get to go and visit another culture or country where phones aren't a big deal. It really stands out to them. Wow, we're on our phones a lot. Soft skills like eye contact.
Yes.
Our kids are scared to make eye contact with people.
And it's funny adults. Because it makes me scared to make eye contact now. Like, you'll try to talk to a teenager and they're looking everywhere, so I'm like, maybe I should be looking everywhere.
Sometimes when I'm walking in my neighborhood, I just intentionally speak to if a group of teenagers walk by, I just try to say good morning and just look at them, just because I want them to I want to normalize saying good morning.
Have you heard of the Gen Z stare recently? It cracks me up, but it's so true. Is like, you'll try to go to a coffee shop and order a coffee, and instead of them like being like, oh, they don't greet you when you walk in, it's like you have to greet yourself and like go through the process. It's not like, hi, welcome into the coffee shop, how may I take your order? Right. It's you walk in and it's silence and you're like, hey, can I order something? And they're like, oh yeah, sure, what do you want?
Yes.
They just stare at you like you shouldn't be there.
Yes. So my mother-in-law and I were in a restaurant with some friends, not in this city, but a couple of weeks ago, and my mother-in-law said, "What kind of food do you serve?" And the little teenager behind the counter, she went, and she kind of did this, and she turned around and she said, "What kind of food do we serve?" And it just made my mother-in-law so baffled. She was like, I would have just made something up.
That's funny.
But yeah, so there's just some soft skills that are not happening. I heard the other day that, you were talking about kids and their big headphones in, just having our AirPods in public is hindering our social
it's like an instant wall up.
Yes, it's like,
don't talk to me.
Yes. And so, just those things, maybe it could be something that you could just say, hey, while we travel on vacation, when we're in the airport, no headphones.
Right.
At least we're going to give
At least until you sit down.
At least until you sit down. Exactly. So I was thinking about some other soft skills that kids and teens are kind of lacking in that I've observed. Shaking hands, or whenever you're meeting someone, or even if it's a fist bump or a hug, even if they know someone well, they don't really know how to approach someone.
Right.
And so, that's just something maybe as a parent you could kind of practice at home. It could be a fun little adventure one night, to just...
Or even body language. Like when you meet somebody new, like if you're standing like this, you're all closed off, it'll be hard for people to want to approach you or see you in a positive light. They might be like, oh, well, maybe they're a little standoffish.
Yes.
Or even like when somebody you've never met before walks into a room, like I always get up because I'm going to go greet them. I'm not going to greet them from sitting down on the couch.
Right.
So just things like that maybe something that your parents modeled for you growing up that just didn't get passed down. I'm not quite sure. The disconnect.
Yes. And I really think some of the disconnect is when it was modeled for them, they didn't see it. They were looking down at their phone, What about just helping people when they see a need?
Yes.
That seems to be a skill that is almost like if a teenager does something helpful, it's on the news. And
it's like, wait, you didn't applaud me for that.
Yeah.
It's like you just took out the trash.
Yes. And it's like, what's happening in our culture that's not normal anymore?
Right.
There's really, I don't know, there used to just be an expectation, a family expectation that...
I think that touches a little bit on our gentle parenting episode last week.
Maybe so. So, why don't you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, I just think sometimes when you start gentle parenting, you're like, can you please go do this? And then when they do it, they get rewarded for it. And it's like, no, it's expectation. We're all part of this household. We all have responsibilities for upkeep.
Yes.
And my parents never got an applause from us when they made their house payment. So why are we going to get applauded when we do the dishes or take out the trash? It's just those expectations that I think gentle parenting brings on, that you get rewarded when you just do basic functions that you should be doing to begin with.
That's a really good point. What about having manners? Just having good manners, having a civil conversation at dinner.
Right.
That has kind of often gone out the window with just that use of cell phones. I guess we talked about that a little bit earlier, but I remember one of my children coming home and saying that her friend was just shocked that we had dinner at the table.
Right.
Because she said, oh, we just sit in front of the TV and we don't even always eat at the same time. We just kind of grab and go. And so my daughter was like, she probably thought that sounds kind of fun.
Yeah.
But because then I wouldn't have to do the dishes for everyone or whatever. But it's so important to just sit together
and connect.
Yeah. Sit together and ask questions. Let your teens see you having conversations, not just about other people or small talk, but dig into an issue, dig into a topic, and find out what they think about it. Explain what words mean. They really sometimes don't know that you even know about some of the things they're learning about in school,
And that's also a good point, because it made me think of how when you try to talk to a teenager, sometimes you'll ask them question after question. They never give you follow-up questions. They never inquire about you or about the subject you're talking about. It's just like you ask them, like, how's your day? And they just go, good. It's like, well, my day was good as well.
Thank you for not asking.
I remember growing up, though, when I was in, I believe it was middle school. I don't know that the girls had this, but our teenage boys had etiquette classes almost. I remember we had a teacher that had days of the week where he would have them dress up in suits. He'd basically teach them like manly qualities and how to be just good qualities in a man. And I don't know that they do anything like that anymore, but it's useful.
Now, it's very useful. And thankfully, locally, we have an excellent etiquette program.
Yeah.
And I believe it's from around age 9 to 15, something like that. And so it really is something that is helpful.
Yeah.
We didn't live here when our older two were in that age range, but our youngest got to go through it for a couple of years, and it was very helpful to just learn how to sit at a nice table and what fork to use and how to do a few simple ballroom dances.
Yeah.
And it just showed a lot of respect. Yes.
That's so fun.
Even little things like how many cookies to take from a plate.
Ooh,
you know,
don't tell me the answer to that.
Oh yeah, you and cookies. We better be careful with you. But yeah, so just a lot of really helpful things that they learned how to act in a social situation.
Right.
So
very useful.
Yes.
A lost art.
Yes. So now that we have phones, they're not going away.
Yeah.
How can parents respond? Where do we go from here? We didn't grow up with these cell phones, but we have them now. We're still trying to learn how to have self-control and how to use them wisely while we're trying to teach our kids how to use them wisely. But what do you think that is the most important thing that parents can do?
I think the most important thing a parent can do is just starting with yourself. And that's the thing that I'm trying to do before me and Landon start to have kids, is really trying to figure out how I can put my own phone down and get my attention span back on track. I've started writing more, starting to be more connected, reading, but I told you I struggle with reading because I turn it into a competition for myself. But I'm working on not turning it into a competition with myself, because it's okay to slow down. I don't have to rush through things. So trying to slow down in reading, writing more, because I realized, why am I writing all these things and then throwing it into AI just to freshen it up? I should not be doing that. I don't need to do that.
Right.
So just little things like that, and trying to reshape how I'm looking at things, so that one day when I have a kid, I can model that behavior to them.
I've gone back to written like a paper journal when I have my devotion with the Lord, because I was trying to use my notes app. Because when I would travel, it's just easier. I have my Bible app, my notes app. But it's really easy to get distracted, and before I know it, I'm checking my email.
Pops up.
Yes. So I just went back to my Bible and my little journal and my glasses, because I need those now. and it really does help me focus in, So that's an excellent point, that the first thing you got to do is just control it yourself.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about, if you haven't yet as a parent, if you haven't put any controls in place and you have teenagers, please just get that under control first.
Right.
Kids are smart, teenagers are smart,
oftentimes a little smarter than we can be.
Yeah, so it's not like this is a guarantee that they're never going to see something you didn't want them to see, or that they're never going to have access to the internet later than you wanted them to. But you can, in case you don't know, you can put parental controls on the router in your house. So you can say no internet past 11 p.m.
Right.
And so that just helps the whole family sleep, for one thing. You can put limits on each device. You can put time limits on apps. So, and that can be like password protected, so you have the password. And what I would recommend, not that I'm the expert, but is high control when they're first starting out. Don't let them have unlimited access or time access, because they're not able to discern. You don't know what they're going to do, But, and then as they got older with our kids, we lessened the controls because they are learning to have self-control. And what we found is sometimes they would actually ask us. Still, my 18-year-old will say, can you just take this off for a week? I just need a break.
Yeah.
And I'm like, absolutely, or can, I think this much time for this app is really not enough. Can I have a little more time for this, But we're just having conversations, and mostly she's deciding.
Right.
But she's learned that she wants to have a real life. She doesn't want to be on it all the time. So I really appreciate that.
Those are good tips.
Yes,
I like those.
yes.
Just like researching what the dangers of social media and the internet could be too.
Right.
That way you're prepared not only to go through some of the battles that come with it, especially with confidence and insecurity, because one day that's definitely going to come up as like, I saw this person online who's got this and this, and you're going to have to know how to handle that conversation. So just better preparing yourself for that subject is helpful. Right. And then also just the dangers of it in other senses of like the people who are also on it. Maybe your child's not doing anything wrong, but other people are wanting to do wrong.
Right.
So being prepared for that and those conversations as well.
Yeah, and there's always, you can make an agreement with your child, even if they're a teenager. You can have this app, but I need access to it as well, because not because you're afraid of what they're going to do. But because I don't want some other people sending you private messages that I don't know about. You know what I'm saying? At least when they're young, and let that freedom come from their responsibility.
Right.
And also the whole illustration about counterfeit money, the counterfeit, the people who are hired to spot counterfeit study the real thing so well that they know it. They know the front, the back, every corner, every tiny design, so that when they see a counterfeit, it's obvious. Oh, this doesn't match.
Right.
This doesn't match the real thing. And so, a major big rock in your parenting and dealing with smartphones is just helping your kids develop a foundation of faith, and let them know what the truth is, so that when they run across things online that don't pass the truth test, they see it. You're not going to be able to be their police, their whole life. And so you've got to give them tools.
But discernment.
Yes. And I was thinking today, Jesus was not caught off guard by smartphones. He's never caught off guard by the next new technology.
Right.
He knows what's going to happen in 20 years and 100 years and et cetera. So things that he tells us to do and tells us to learn, they're going to be true for eternity.
Right.
And so one of my favorite verses that I thought for teenagers especially, I have so many, but I'm gonna shorten it a little bit. Yeah. It's Joshua 1:8. And it's the promise. It's a really fun conversation starter with your teenager, because you can say, did you know that God promised that you could be prosperous and successful? And if you do this one thing, he promises you're going to be prosperous and successful. They'll probably perk up and wonder, what is this? What are you talking about? And it's Joshua 1:8. It says, this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success.
I love that.
And so, teaching your teens, actually knowing the Bible is helpful for you in every possible way. Is even practically helpful for you. So helping them just develop a love for God's word is a huge factor in helping them make good decisions online. Yeah. And so what about values? Like, how do you help your teenager? How do you think you're going to help your teenager develop just foundational values that will help them have that discernment, to where they'll say, when they see something online, or when they take a step back and think about how they're spending their time, they'll say, wait a minute, this doesn't match up with who I am.
Right. I definitely think, like you said, getting in the Word and making sure that you're teaching them, making sure that the content that you also have going around you in your home that you're also watching is important to keep up, like listening to good music if you have it playing in the morning. And yeah, and I think when you see your child do something good, even though I just said gentle parenting, you can't praise them for when they do things, but like if you see your kid do something bold and courageous, like saying, Mom, this isn't something I should be looking at, and I want you to get this off my phone, being like, that was a great decision, you had great judgment there. Yes. And praising them for that judgment that they made on their own is such a great way to go about that, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, like we talked about in our last episode, when kids are young, they're like a sponge, and they just can take so many facts, and they just have, they're really good at memorizing things. But as teenagers, that's when they're hopefully applying a lot of what they've learned, and when you see them applying it, applaud it.
Yes.
So, yes, say, wow, you were so bold. I'm so proud of you for how you handled that situation, or how you respected your teacher, you know, that sort of thing. I see you working really hard, on your schoolwork or whatever it is. And give those values a name so that they see, oh, wow, I'm actually becoming a diligent person. I'm becoming a kind person.
Yeah, put names to the qualities that they're becoming, so then one day they can be like, I'm a kind person, I'm a smart person, I am bold, I'm courageous, I'm all these things, putting that name to those words so they can one day say, this is who I am.
Yes, exactly. And those things, when they don't line up with their online, what they see online, or maybe even the brand that they're creating for themselves online, hopefully they'll recognize, wait a minute, this doesn't line up with who I am and how my parents see me. So I want to restructure that,
Yeah.
So, well, I think this has been a really fun conversation.
This was fun.
Yeah, hopefully it's helpful. And we would love to hear if you guys have any tips about how to navigate this smartphone age we have with our teenagers.
Yeah, we would love to get some tips, especially like the last one. If you have any tips, please comment them in the YouTube comments, because I'm going to have to come back and read these tips.
Yes.
When I have a kid one day.
And also, if there are other just conversations that you would like for us to have, we'd love to hear that, because we want to bring up subjects that are relevant to what you are going through.
Yeah.
So
time for nuts and bolts.
Time for nuts and bolts.
This one's an exciting one.
Okay, so today we're answering Delaney's question of what should I do if I get pulled over by a police officer, which is not something that we hope will ever happen. But if it does, you'll be prepared. Okay. So in case maybe you just haven't ever had this happen, or no one's ever talked to you about what to do, I would say there's a few steps. Okay, so sadly this has happened to me a couple of times.
I don't believe it.
And so I would say, is that my phone? Just one moment.
Should we start from the top?
Let's start for nuts and bolts.
Okay. Is it time for nuts and bolts?
It is. It's time for nuts and bolts.
I'm so excited.
Okay. So today we're getting to that subject you were talking about.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about what happens, what to do if Delaney gets pulled over by a police officer.
Not Delaney specifically. Anybody that gets pulled over.
If anyone gets pulled over, what are the steps we should take?
Luckily, it hasn't happened for me yet. So my parents taught me back when I was 16 all the papers that I need to hand off. But I'm now, it's almost been 10 years later. I'm turning 26 this year. So maybe a little refresher would be nice.
Yes. So basically, if you find yourself with a police officer behind you while you're driving, I would say there's a few steps to just think through. The first one is don't panic. The last thing that they want you to do is cause a wreck because you're scared, or get yourself into trouble, or anyone else into trouble. And then take a few seconds, turn your blinker on, take a few seconds and find a safe place to pull over. It should usually be on the right side.
Yes.
You don't need to pull into the median, if at all possible, in the middle. Say if you're on the interstate, you should try to be on the right side. always, roll your window down and make yourself very exposed and innocent. Let them know that you're safe. You're safe. Yes, you're safe to approach. And the best way to do that is to put your hands on the steering wheel.
Okay.
And that way, yeah, something like that, so that they know, okay, she doesn't have anything in her hands, and she's, her window's down, she's approachable. It's not, usually they will ask you, do you know why?
I'm pulling you over.
If you don't know, it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you think you might know, you can still say, can you explain it to me, or whatever. They'll ask you for your driver's license and your registration. So always keep that in your glove box, your registration. You need to ask permission usually, like, I have my license in my purse, let's just say, or I have it in my console. Is it okay if I get it out? So they know what you're doing. Show them everything. Always turn your music down, things like that. Make eye contact. Let them know that you're receptive to what they're, what they need to do. And then I would just say answer their questions. They may or may not, charge you with a ticket or an issue. Often I've even been pulled over one time because my lights were not on.
Oh.
I left somewhere that was really bright, and it was a really long day or something, and just right out of the gate, I was like, what did I do?
Yeah.
And they just said, were you aware that your lights are not on? So often they just want to help you, and then, once everything's taken care of, often they'll go back to their car. So don't leave. Don't leave until they give you permission.
Like, bye.
Once they decide what the decision or the ticket or not, has happened, then they'll tell you, that you need to go. They'll probably give you a piece of paper if you actually get a ticket or a warning. They'll give you some instructions like slow down, or whatever.
Turn your lights on.
And then you just make sure that you slowly and safely, drive away. So the main thing is don't panic, and you probably know what to do. It's just very intimidating.
It is.
If you're not careful.
I've been in the car while, and I won't name names, Landon has been pulled over before. So I've definitely seen the process, but just the thought of doing it myself, I'm like, ooh, like something bad's going to happen. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that it's pretty important just to make sure that they know that you're a safe person to approach, and everything else kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah.
So you got this.
That's so helpful when I get pulled over one day, hopefully not, knock on wood. I'm like, hold on, I got to pull up nuts and bolts from episode 3 of the Ladylike podcast.
Yes. Let me listen.
Let me listen back. Well, this was so helpful.
Well, good.
Thank you.
Well, thank y'all. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any comments, please leave them for us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.